you could have a massive bookshelf just of current books on leadership and then classics on leadership. So why would anyone write a new book on leadership? I did that because I wanted to rethink the entire equation. There are pragmatic and practical things to learn about leadership, and I deal with some of those. There are some wonderfully very substantial theories of leadership that any leader really should be aware of. But what I wanted to go back to was the very foundation. Why lead? And in what mode should the Christian leader lead? And that's why I wanted to come back to the issue of the conviction to lead. It all begins and ends with conviction. Leadership, rightly understood, is not just how to get from A to B, but to know why. And to understand that it is conviction that is what establishes the most authentic leadership, the only leadership that really matters. And it's about putting conviction into action. It's about passionately communicating conviction so that others begin to embrace and hold those convictions. It's about developing that conviction so that an organization, a congregation, an institution, for that matter, a corporation or a government, begins to lead in the right directions for the right reasons together, driven by conviction. This is really the distinguishing mark of Christian leadership. There are character issues that are essential to Christian leadership, but it's the truth issue that's first and foremost. And there are secular people who will admire conviction, and there are secular convictions, but they have a very limited shelf life, and they tend to have a very shallow kind of foundation. Christianity is based in certain truths that are perfectly, eternally, graciously revealed to us, and we stake our lives upon these truths. We invest everything we are in these truths. All that we trust in is in Christ and in the truth concerning Him. And so for the Christian, conviction is a very different kind of thing. It comes back to the opening of Hebrews chapter 11 in terms of faith. The substance of things hoped for, the essence of things not seen. Now, there are no secular convictions that can hold up to that standard. You know, I think we've reached the point where, having tried everything else, we are likely to be back where we should have been in the first place. And that is recognizing the essential nature of convictional leadership, both in terms of the secular world, in terms of national leaders and corporate leaders and cultural leaders. We recognize there's just been either a deficit of conviction or, quite frankly, the wrong convictions that have driven so much leadership. In evangelicalism, we understand there's a certain superficiality in terms of our understanding of leadership that has had some very damaging, sometimes even disastrous results. We understand that leadership does entail everything the secular world wants to say about it. All those dimensions are legitimate, and in fact, they're even important. But something far more important and even more fundamental is what Christians know about leadership. And that is that leadership begins in truth. That truth is possessed in terms of convictions, which are truths that we not only possess, but that literally possess us. They are the fundamental truths that drive us in terms of why we get up in the morning, why we do what we do, why we have hope for the future, how we know who we are, how we know where to lead. We need to lean into those convictions and demonstrate how they are transformed into the only truly effective mode of leadership. Well, if the leader is not really driven by conviction, then I'm going to argue that what's happening isn't actually leadership. And sometimes we confuse leadership with administration, leadership with management. Sometimes we just reduce leadership to effectiveness, looking at how many of these things are made, how many of these people are gathered, how many of these things are accomplished. But that doesn't add up to leadership. Leadership changes lives. Leadership changes history. Leadership makes a difference at the level of truth, not just at the level of technique or technology, or for that matter, just in terms of the kinds of numbers that sometimes are our primary focus. Sometimes success can mask, actually, a lack of leadership. But over the long run, it'll show. Any leadership position worth having is going to have numerous moments when the leader isn't even sure why he's doing this, except for conviction. I mean, all the trappings of leadership, all of the privileges of leadership, all of the adrenaline pumping kind of thrills of leadership will abandon the leader at very crucial moments when all is left is conviction. And so if you lack the conviction to lead, you won't understand why you stick in with this, why your confidence is in the fact that this leadership is really important, why you find yourself truly loving these people who don't apparently at this moment want to be led. Why it is that you stick with this, understanding that even when sometimes you're taking 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, that's still 1 step forward. Because convictional leadership reframes everything in terms of the total confidence we have in God's purposes and God's truth, and in the fact that what we're doing is a part of a bigger story, the ending of which we already know. The first thing for a convictional leader is understanding that we have to use words. You can be a 4-star general, but you really can't lead an army by gesture. It takes words. God made us in His image as linguistic creatures. He gave us the capacity of language, and not only that, the necessity of language. And so leaders have to learn how convictions are conveyed not only through language, but primarily through words. Where you find a convictional leader, you're going to find a reader. You're going to find someone who loves words and loves to understand how words are conveyed. You're going to find a writer. You're going to find a conversationalist. And yes, you're going to find a speaker. Because at the end of the day, the leader who leads by conviction has to be ready to stand, whether it's before a live audience or in some other context, and actually deliver a message. Because people are waiting for that message. They're hungry and thirsty for that message. They're going to be moved or not moved by whether or not that message conveys conviction passionately and gives them all they need to know how faithfully to follow. What we need as convictional leaders is to understand that words are not just some kind of sociological accident. They are the most essential tools of convictional leadership.